Hello and welcome to a video about boutique Blu-ray collecting with me, Elliot Coen. And in this video I'm going to be showcasing the brand new release of the film Walkabout, directed by Nicolas Roeg, and this is being released by the label Second Sight Films here in the UK, and it's based off a new 4K restoration of the film. So I know a hell of a lot of people are excited to see if this new release is actually worth it and to see how it compares to some of the older releases of Walkabout. My plan with this video is to talk about the packaging first and the overall presentation of this release. Then I'll talk about the film itself and how it actually looks on this disc compared to previous releases. And then I'll talk a bit about the special features and all the extra stuff that you can find in this release. Before we get into it, I want to say a thank you to Second Sight Films for actually sending me this release to review on this channel, and they've sent it me a few days early, which is pretty good. I can get a good first impression and share it with you to let you know if it's worth picking up. And I'm going to be impartial. I'm going to give you a fair opinion on whether this is worth picking up, so stick around to hear my opinion. Without further ado, let's just have a look at the release. Here it is, Walkabout in all of its beautiful glory. I think this is a great release on first impressions, just based off the packaging. As with all of these Second Sight Films limited editions, they're all in a hardbound case, which, you know, if you've been on this channel before, is something that I really appreciate. I love how these all look on the shelf, and they just feel special. I don't know what it is about these hardbound cases. And the spine of it just has the Walkabout lettering. There's no ratings logo. There's a Second Sight Films logo here in the bottom, but you can barely make it out. So I think this looks really nice. Another thing I really like that Second Sight do is they don't print the logo on the front, and you know that's one of my pet peeves, but they do one of these J cards that you can just take off. So this just peels off and you won't have the ratings logo on the front, and the back just has no writing or anything. It's just a clear case. And the J card itself has all of the details, so you can just take this off, and it's just pretty handy, and it makes it look like a proper collector's piece, if you know what I mean. So on the back, I'll just read what it says. It gives a quick blurb about the film, so if you've not seen the film, this should give you a bit of an idea. A young sister and brother are left stranded in the blistering heat of the vast Australian outback. Facing exhaustion and starvation, their salvation comes when they cross paths with an Aboriginal boy on Walkabout, a ritual in which he must leave his home and learn to live off the land. He teaches them how to survive in the wilderness, but a clash of cultures leads to terrible and tragic consequences. That pretty much covers what this film is about, and hopefully that intrigues any of you who haven't seen this, because the film itself I think is absolutely brilliant. And Nicolas Roeg is a great director, very iconoclastic. He just does what he wants, goes against the grain. He uses a lot of techniques in this film, such as long zooms in the middle of the take, which many people would say is you just shouldn't zoom in a film. That's what a lot of people say. But he just does it anyway, and it really works for him. So he was a very bold director, and you can see that in all of the films he made. But this is an early one from him, and such an important film in his filmography. If you're enjoying this video about the new Walkabout release, please do consider subscribing to the channel. You would hear about these videos as soon as they get uploaded, and you could join in this great community that we're building here. Anyway, back to the Walkabout release. The back of the case goes on to list the special features, which I'm going to talk about towards the end of the video. It does say the limited edition contents though. This is a box set of only 3,000 copies, so if you want to pick this up, I would pick it up as soon as possible, because 3,000 might sound like a lot, but they will run out, and when they've run out, these box sets are going to go for a lot more on the secondary market. So if you don't want to pay double or triple the price on eBay in a year's time, I'd recommend getting this as soon as possible. It says rigid slipcase with new design by Michael Boland, which you can see here. Now, inside, I'll show you what's in here. So you can just pull everything out really easily, and it just leaves the case. I'll pop that to one side. So first of all, you've got the disc. The disc is just in a standard black case, and it's got all of the information that's on the back of the J card. So if you decided to throw away that piece of card, you've still got all of the information on the back of this disc. And inside, it's just the disc, no booklet, but there's booklets here, so we'll get onto them now. So I've never seen anything like this release before, because it comes with not one, not two, but 3 books inside the case. I've never seen 3 different books inside a case. Now, each one of these has a different purpose. So this one that you see here, which has slightly different artwork on the front, this says James Vance Marshall Walkabout. That is because this is the original source material novel that the film is based upon. So this is actually the full novel. It's a puffin modern classic. So this is a legit novel that you can just read. And I've never read this novel before, so I'm definitely going to be checking this out. So that's a very, very nice inclusion. I always like when they include the books that the films are based on within the actual release. I know Criterion have done that a few times. They did that with Picnic at Hanging Rock, which is another film set in Australia, so a bit of a connection there. But yeah, it's nice having the novel, you know, it's different. So I'm definitely going to be checking that out. The next book, which has this artwork on the front, this is actually the first draft screenplay that the film is based on. So this is only, I think it's a 60-page or 70-page screenplay by Edward Bond, which was obviously revised a lot. And 60 pages is short for a feature-length film. Now, Walkabout doesn't have a lot of dialogue in it anyway, so you probably could get away with a script that short. But it's going to be interesting to check all of this out, you know, the first shooting script, to see what they would have gone on to film it with. So that, again, very nice inclusion to have in the set. And the third book that you get in the package is this one, and this includes some essays and appreciation of the film, along with some still images. And there's one in here called Walkabout 50 Years Later, because Walkabout came out in 1970. So this is looking back on it 50 years since its release. So it's great to have this in the package as well. So beyond the film and the special features on the disc, you have quite a lot of reading to do here as well, if you so desire. So I think this already makes it a pretty damn good package to get. All of those books and the disc fit nicely back in here. And I would say overall, the packaging is really nice. Like, it probably gets full marks from me from presentation and packaging alone. So in that regard, it's a great release already. But let's talk a bit about how this film actually looks and compares to another Walkabout release. So as I mentioned at the top of the video, this is from a 4K scan and restoration. Now, it isn't a 4K UHD disc, so you can't really call it a 4K Blu-ray, because the 4K scan has been compressed down into a 1080p Blu-ray. So you're still not getting that full detail, you're not getting the full benefit of the scan and the restoration. So it's a bit of a shame that Second Sight didn't release a 4K UHD disc for this. I know that they're preparing their first 4K release with Dawn of the Dead, which comes out in a couple of months, which is very exciting. It's just a shame they couldn't have done it first with Walkabout, because this film is definitely worthy of a 4K release. I think the detail is there, the film looks amazing, the landscapes, just the look of it all, the colours and the close-up photography of all of the animals and the insects. It just would have looked great on 4K Blu-ray, so it's a shame that that didn't happen. All that said about it not being a 4K disc, I think the film looks spectacular, and I think, in my opinion, this is the best it has ever looked. My main point of comparison is this. This is the Walkabout release from the Criterion Collection. This is spine number 10 from Criterion. Now, this is quite an old disc. The first printing was 2010, so this is 10 years old at this point. Now, I have actually watched this recently in preparation for getting this release, and this Blu-ray still looks amazing. It looks spectacular. But I did some side-by-side comparisons, and I would say there are some pretty substantial differences between this and the new 4K scan presented by Second Sight. So the main difference that I saw between the Second Sight films release and the Criterion release is there's a major uptick in detail in the new Second Sight disc, and this is obviously because of the 4K scan. You can see more details in the wide landscapes, you can see more details in the close-ups of the animals and the insects and the actors in the film, and just generally there's more detail. Now the Criterion disc still looks amazing, like I said, and you would probably only notice a difference if you were doing a close inspection like I did, but the Second Sight release definitely nudges ahead in terms of detail. There's also a significant difference in the colours within the film. Now this will come down to subjectivity and maybe personal preference. I think the colours look much better in the Second Sight film's release. Not only are the colours different, but I think the spectrum of colours that are on show is much wider. So the skin tones are much more natural, much deeper. Some of the darker tones in the film are really dark and really, you can really see the darkness of them, if that makes sense. And then just the vibrancy of the image. So the greens are really vibrant, the reds are vibrant, the sand in the desert, the orange nature of it, the browns of it. It all just looks much more vibrant than the Criterion release. But that said, I could totally see the perspective that someone would look at this new Second Sight release and say that the colours are too extreme, maybe a bit too saturated, a bit too deep, and maybe they're more accustomed with the older master that the Criterion disc was taken from. So in terms of colour, it's going to be down to subjectivity, but I think personally the Second Sight film release looks much better in that regard as well. So to conclude about the picture quality, yeah, the Second Sight films is a winner, and I would totally recommend getting it. And if you're a big fan of Walkabout, it's definitely worth the double dip, and because there's different special features which I'm going to get onto now. So the special features on the Second Sight release, there's a brand new audio commentary with Luke Roeg and David Thompson. Now Luke Roeg is of course Nicolas Roeg's son, and he is the young boy in Walkabout. So he was a big part of this film, and he's talking about his experiences on making the film, and David Thompson is asking him a lot about the experiences, and just you get a real insight into how the film was made. Like there was a great tidbit that he mentions in the commentary about the animals that we used in the film, and they were animals in the wild, so they weren't placed there for a certain shot, for a certain composition. And that makes the actual compositions in the film just much more impressive. How Nicolas Roeg was shooting this film and was able to capture the animals at just the right time. So I found that very fascinating, and it's a brilliant audio commentary. There's a feature called Producing Walkabout, which is a new interview with producer Cy Litvinoff. There's Luke's Walkabout, which is a new interview with Luke Roeg, which is fascinating as well. There's Jenny and the Outback, which is a new interview with Jenny Agutter, which is a great interview as well. Remembering Roeg, a new interview with Danny Boyle. So Danny Boyle, famous director. He talks a lot about his love of Nicolas Roeg. He says Nicolas Roeg is the greatest British director of all time, which is a big claim, but I'm not going to dispute it. And that's a great feature as well. And then there's a 2011 BFI Q&A with Nicolas Roeg, Jenny Agutter and Luke Roeg. So those are all of the special features, and it's a packed release. I don't know the running time of all these special features, but there's hours of content there. So for Walkabout fans, this is such a great package. However, the old Criterion release, the special features on this are different. So this has an audio commentary with Roeg and actress Jenny Agutter, which is different obviously to the commentary on the Second Sight. There's video interviews with Agutter and Luke Roeg, which are different to the ones on the Second Sight. And there's an hour-long documentary on the life and career of actor David Gulpilil, who is the Aboriginal boy in Walkabout. And then there's a different booklet with an essay in here as well. So if you're a true Walkabout fan, you are going to want to double dip on these, trust me. But if you just want to get one copy and you had to pick between the Criterion or the Second Sight, I'm going all the way with this. And you know what that means coming from a big Criterion fanboy. But this release is just so good. So if you're on the fence, get off that fence and buy this, especially because limited to 3,000, it's going to run out and you might kick yourself if you don't pick it up before it goes out of print. So that about does it for this video. I looked at the packaging of the Walkabout release, which is great, the picture presentation, which I think is the best the film has ever looked, and then the special features, which are amazing. So all around, I really do love this release, and thank you to Second Sight for sending me a copy. Oh, and before I go, I want to say a big thank you to my Fellini Fanatics Patreon over on my Patreon account. That's Dustin. Thank you very much for your support, as always. If you want to check out my Patreon, by all means, there'll be a link in the description and you can check out the exclusive videos that you can access over on my Patreon page. I will be back with more videos very soon about boutique Blu-rays, but if you want to stick around on the channel and get some more recommendations, just click whatever video is going to appear on the screen right now, because I'm sure you can find out some more films from me in those videos. I'll be back very soon, so until then, stay well and keep watching great films.